Hi, this is Amy Linder, and this is my MAE 670 artifact analysis. I'm excited to show you what I've learned throughout the last few months. I did start this program over 20 years ago, back in 1999, and I did like about 8 consecutive courses, and then went into a different direction for a while in the arts, and then I came back 20 years later to finish, I guess. I've taught art classes for about 7 or 8 years. I've done a lot of tutoring, a lot of private classes, and my goal is to bring the arts to the community and work with nonprofits and set up art education programs for people who are in low socioeconomic situations or have traumas. So I guess the next will be Plan a Steady, MAE 610, and we'll go to the next slide. I'm back. Plan a Study MAE 610. I got to put together a plan of study. I went back and looked at my old courses and figured out kind of what I wanted to take as my next 2 classes. I decided to take the ITL 606 and 604. I took 604 first and decided to take the next one. I really got a lot out of it. I this is where I was looking at the PLOs. There's 4 that we needed to cover, and in a nutshell, one was to integrate advanced approaches to instruction, assessment, and learning digital tools and skills. Number 2, design learning experiences that include learner characteristics, principles, of customized learning and assessments in learning. The third is to apply practitioner research methods to study and inform instruction in traditional and digital learning environments. And the fourth was develop reflective practices that are grounded in current learning, science research, professional ethics, and include pathways for continuous growth. So I added my original plan of study assignment from MAE 10 on this slide. Like I said, I did change it around a little bit, and I have 6 classes that I took like 20 years ago. They were from the CLAD classes, cultural learning and diversity classes. And the next slide will show you the next class I took in my lineup. This is the artifact that I chose for plan of study number 1, ITL 604, Learners and Learning. It was my first class that I took after the MAE 610, and I got a lot of information. I feel like I've really got a lot out of this class, but something in particular that I wanted to share with you was the cultural iceberg that we did exercise that we did in class. And I thought, this is the perfect thing the first week of school to get to know your students and find out where they're from, where they're coming from, know their funds of knowledge, possibly just get deeper into who they are and how I can best serve them in the class. Because my biggest thing is differentiated style teaching in the arts. And so I posted here my cultural iceberg. That's just my sample. And, it does this, I believe, fulfills the PLO2, which is the continuation of educating myself in best learning practices. And the outcome will be a culturally well-rounded, developmental, all-inclusive curriculum. So this is very important for me to engage all my students and make sure I'm on the same page with all of them and able to give them what they need and understand them. Hi, back to plan of study number 2, ITL 606, Learners and Learning. My artifact is from a exercise we did during class. I believe it was the 2nd or 3rd week. And it is responding to the cultural responsive teaching method. And from that, I was able to put down what I want my classroom to be like. My 7 things that I want to have instilled in my classroom is to teach cultural diverse curriculum, to be approachable and inviting, to display visuals that are culturally inclusive, like artworks from multiple cultures. I will continue to assess progress students are making. I will embrace differentiated learning in the class to allow students different paths to learn a concept. And I will display behavior expectations to the class. I will continue to have small group projects, collaborative learning, as well as individual projects. It's very important for me to practice differentiated teaching in a classroom like art because we're not all um, confident when we start taking an art class. So I want to make sure that every child is comfortable where they start, and I want them to explore opportunities and explore different mediums in the classroom. I also want each child to be culturally comfortable with what I'm teaching. I'm not going to just teach from one part of the world. I like to teach from all different parts of the world, different artists from different countries and continents. So I hopefully they feel it's inclusive, and as long as the students all meet the standards, it's how they get there is their choice. I'm going to give them choices to work individually, um, or like independently or in small groups. I want to have a lot of collaborative projects. And so we work with others, we learn about each other and work on our social emotional learning. But yeah, so the PLO one, following the cultural responsive teaching method in my classroom, I will continue to integrate advanced approaches to instruction, assessment, and learning with digital tools and skills. Plan of study number 3 is CLAD 605, Diversity in the Classroom. This was my first course I took back in 1999, back 20 something years ago. It was an in person class, and we studied a lot about diversity in the classroom and how to engage with students with different diverse backgrounds. This met the PLO2 using the universal design of learning and differentiated teaching methods. I will design learning experiences that include learner characteristics, principles of customized learning, and assessment of learning. And as my artifact, I decided to put part of my essay from my practitioner research study from MAE 670. Um, what is the relationship between the implementation of differentiated art-based instruction in the classroom and the measurement of social emotional development in K through 12 learners? I just want to reiterate that the differentiated type teaching consists of many different practices and accommodations and learning models. And in an art classroom, we can all meet the same standards using differentiated type learning. And art mediums can be interchangeable with digital media. Independent work can be collaborative. Modifications can be made to assignments on a moment's notice. But as long as everyone meets the standards, we're all on the same page. It's just we all have a different journey on how to get there. So, based off of kids' funds of knowledge, also that's going to be a big factor in how well they do in the course. So, it's understanding that is very important, which is the other slide about the cultural iceberg is important to do something in the first week of school to kind of get to know who your students are and what they knowledge they already have, culturally, educationally, etc. So we'll move on to the next one. Plan of study number 4, CLAD 611, Psychology Applied to the Diverse Student. I got my artifact from a binder that I had saved for the last 22 years. I found a tub in my garage and I pulled out a journal entry that I had made for this class, discussing ways to apply Piaget's theory of cognitive development that's applicable to preschool and elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I have 4 or 5 things I put in there for ideas of instruction are basically what you'd call today differentiated learning, by placing students together, one who is a higher learner to one who's a lower learner, putting the kids in a situation where they're socially involved with each other. So, like the small learning groups. Also, splitting up the class into small study groups is also helpful. And maybe spending a few minutes at the beginning of each class to get to know each other better. Every student can, pick a day. They can do it 1 or 2 a day or 1 a week, where you learn something about your fellow student that you normally wouldn't know just by seeing them. Again, this is going to meet the needs of the PLL4. Its assessment of the student and evaluating the special needs of the student are addressed, as well as applying current learning science research, professional ethics, and providing a continuous pathway to growth. This artifact informs ways to apply Piaget's theory of cognitive development to teaching. Plan of study number 5 is CLAD 615. It's called Educational Foundations. And this program of study mapped out the path and set up building blocks of education, thus supporting PLL4 in creating a foundation for continuous growth. And basically, this class basically taught you how the educational foundations. I decided to use an artifact from 15, 16 years ago. I did a class at an early childhood education center, and I had my students prepare a art show. And we actually had it at a real gallery with it all displayed. And it gave the kids an opportunity to work towards something and be excited about something they did, and they can see their images on the walls. It was fun. The kids loved it. The parents loved it. And we had hors d'oeuvres, and the kids got to see their artwork hanging up. And it was on view for about a month, so the public can come in and see it. And also with the educational foundations, I also put up the color wheels to the right. These are just samples I found on the internet because basic color theory is something a foundation for art classes, and this is one of the first assignments I give my students is to make a color wheel. The younger they are, the less complicated I make it. I usually have kids do crayons when they're younger. Junior high, I'll do probably watercolors or acrylics, and same thing with high school students. They can also do this digitally as well for students who don't want to deal with the mess of paint and they're still learning the standards of art. Again, this is going to take care of PLL number 4 for CLAD 615. Plan of Study 6 is Exceptional Children in the Classroom. It was called EXC 625. PLL 1 and 2 are addressed in this course. It addresses IEPs, advanced learning approaches for students with special needs, and methods of assessing those needs. It also emphasized customized learning and assessments within those IEPs. So this class was basically based for kids to learn about how to teach kids with IEPs and 504 plans and how to accommodate them. And my artifact is a little archaic, but like I said, I had to scan these from notes that I've had in my notebook from the class. And one of my assignments was strategies for ADD students in the classroom. And like I said, it's very archaic, but it talks about classroom characteristics that promote success, teacher characteristics that are helpful to the student, behavior management techniques, self monitoring techniques. I can add so much more to this list right now going through this. But I will say that the teacher characteristics that are helpful for students are positive academic expectations, frequent monitoring and checking out work, clarifying and giving directions, warmth and patience and humor, consistency and firmness, knowledge of different behavioral interventions, and willingness to work with a special education teacher. Also, the self monitoring techniques I noticed are very scant. Cueing the child to keep on task by using an audio tone or a random beeper. And something that I've learned as a teacher and with my own kids is fidget tools are awesome and helps kids concentrate a lot better if they have a fidget toy in their hand. So that's something I would add to this now. Um, and also the predictability, structure, shorter work periods, small teacher ratio, more individualized instruction, interesting curriculum, and use of positive reinforcements are very important. And I think with my art class, keeping it the interesting curriculum is very important. I want the kids to have choices, and I think the more choices they have, the happier they're going to be, and the more they're going to learn. Plan of study number 7, EDT 608, computer based technology, was a class I took over 20 years ago. So technology has changed a ton since then. And I don't have any records from that class because it was all in class computer assignments and we didn't have a notebook to save from the class. But it does fulfill PLO3 and PLL4. It was an introductory course to computer-based technology. It taught implementation of technology in the class projects and lectures. It focused on teacher and student using technology to communicate. So I pulled a part of the teacher performance expectations 3.2. And in the growth section, it asks to describe what tools you'll use to investigate and practice using to communicate with your students. So my ideas were for students to create a class website that they built themselves and that I monitored, have a class Instagram page where we can post artwork that we're doing during the week. Also, email blasts and text message, group text messaging for the students and teachers. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone gets the same message. There's no confusion whatsoever. Those are things I would like to do, especially with the younger kids, in case they are bringing work home to do, so the parents know what's going on. But I think it's also important for kids to have their work displayed as well and have feedback from the community and from their parents. Plan of study number 8, CLAD 623, is English development in the classroom. It meets PLO2. It addresses in the course because it designs learning experiences that are inclusive for English language learners. And because this class was taken over 20 years ago, I did not have any artifacts that I could post. But I did find the teacher performance expectations in my class of Learners and Learning. 3.5 addresses this. And something that I like to do in my class is label English and Spanish, or English and whichever language is their first language, so that they can learn English and be comfortable knowing what products are using, etc. I also like to label things in Braille because there's an opportunity for kids to learn that in the class as well. Kids that might be visually impaired would benefit from this as well. Everything written out and labeled, I think, will help anybody with auditory issues as well. Thank you for watching my slideshow. I'd like to cap it off with some student artwork that I've saved over the years. There's 5 different samples up here, and I hope you enjoy them. And I'm looking forward to sharing my love of art with the community and with my students in the future. And thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.